10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hubba, 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 folks. Welcome to Ledger Live. This edition, March 5th, 2025, the day after President Donald Trump's address to a joint session of Congress. And you watched, I watched, and our side thought it was great. And their side thought it was treason and lies and not true and walking out and making buffoons of themselves, like the lunatic Congressman from Texas, Mr. Green, who waved his cane. By the way, I think the Secret Service ought to visit Congressman Green and ask him exactly, what was the intention of waving that cane at the President of the United States. He was only 30 feet. That Congress, the halls of the House of Representatives, are a very small, intimate kind of room. I mean, someone sneezes in there and 100 people get a cold. And so he's waving his cane, this close, it looked like, but probably 20, 30 feet away from the President of the United States. And if you notice, when the President comes in, Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States, there's no Secret Service around him. So everybody in that room has been vetted. I would imagine around the perimeter. I would imagine in plain clothes, there are probably not that the Secret Service, kind of blending in. There's got to be some sort of Secret Service presence inside the halls of Congress when the President is there. I just don't believe they're not inside and they're just on the perimeter. Because you do have lunatics like Congressman Green, and you don't know what he's capable of, do you? Maybe they shouldn't allow canes inside the halls of Congress. I noticed Nancy Pelosi, as she was doing her usual facial gyrations, it looked like she had a cane. And I don't know if you remember, but it was in December, I believe. She was on a fact-finding mission to Germany or somewhere, Austria, over there, paid for by you and me, on some sort of anniversary, something with several dozen other Democrat members of Congress. She falls and breaks her hip. So I believe that's why she's probably carrying a cane. And so it's so predictable now in this day and age in our country that you and I get text messages from my friends during the speech. This is wonderful. He's great, blah, blah, blah. And I concur. And then I read postmortems on social media from the other side. It's just, it's an amazing thing that we live in this day and age in this country, because never, ever, I remember the 80s, I remember the 90s. We disliked Bill Clinton, but every once in a while, Bill Clinton would act in a bipartisan kind of way, and he would swerve into balancing the budget. He gets credit for balancing the budget. Of course, it wasn't. It was Newt Gingrich in the Congress. But the bottom line is, he wasn't polar opposite like we have today. And look at George W. Bush. He reached out to the Democrats, the other side, constantly, to our disdain, and we now know what George W. Bush is all about. Even Obama. I mean, Obama created the foundation for this strife and this polarization in our country. There's no doubt about it. He laid the foundation, but at least he faked it. At least he faked working with both sides. Now there's no sugarcoating it. And Donald Trump called out the radical left sitting to his right, ironically, camera left sitting to Donald Trump's right. As he said, he could have come up with a cure for cancer right then and there and announced it, and they would not have clapped. It's an unbelievable time. I mean, think about it. You had a couple families up there in the gallery whose children were murdered by illegals. And as a result, we have the Laken Riley bill that her family was one of them. And these are Americans who were murdered by illegals in this country, which should never happen. All of these people. Kate Steinle, remember that name? It was Donald Trump's first term and first time running for president. That was the name he used. Now it's Lincoln Riley, because of course we still have the problem. And Americans are being murdered at the hands of illegals. Kate Steinle, if you remember, was in San Francisco on Pier 39, shot to death, murdered by an illegal. And the illegal got away with murder. I don't even know what happened. I just remember his sentence was reduced and moved and this and that. I mean, this guy should have been deported to his country with a tag on him. Do whatever you want with him. Highly recommend whatever your most severe penalty is. I'm not a fan of the death penalty. I've always been a pro-lifer across the board. I think if you're pro-life in the womb, you should be pro-life all the way to your natural death. That no human being, it's my opinion, that no human being has the right to take the life of any other human being. So if you're pro-life and pro-death penalty, I'm sorry. I can't reconcile the two. I just can't. As a Christian, I can't do it. And you can call me weak, you can call me stupid, I don't know. But it is just, it's just me, and I'm sure I'm not alone, that the harshest punishment in this country should be throw away the key kind of thing. And I know we got to pay for it. I know. And I hate that. I hate paying for these guys to rot away in prison. But that's all we got. Unless we want to deport them to Alcatraz like we used to. Wouldn't that be fun? So you have them the Democrats sitting on their hands with these families up there, with the murdered family members. No support whatsoever. You have the girl who was hit with a spike by a male volleyball player who said he was a girl and hit her in the face and caused all kinds of injury and spinal problems. No support whatsoever from the Democrats. You have there was that young man whose dream was to go to West Point, and Donald Trump announces, "Hey, you're in." I mean, what a moment! What a moment! You're in. You got it in. You're in to West Point. Now you better not screw up. You're on national television. No support from the Democrats. And little DJ, the little boy who was suffering from brain cancer. I don't know his status, if he still has it. I pray to God it's over for him. He didn't look too cognizant during the entire time they showed him on camera. It breaks my heart. God only knows. Anyway, so his dream is to be a police officer, and we pray, we all do, that he reaches that dream. Meantime, he's been made honorary police officer all over the country or wherever, and Donald Trump bestows upon him honorary Secret Service agent. I mean, how awesome is that? Democrats, no response. It is unbelievable to me that we live in a time like this. This is something that, the framers certainly could have never envisioned, but even more recently, Kennedy or Eisenhower or the Roosevelts even. Jimmy Carter, recently dead, but I just don't think anybody who lived a while ago could ever envision the polarization that we have in this country. Please go to my YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube and you are live, and give me some comments and questions. Tell me my hair looks good, because I just had it fixed. So hard to find a good barber, but I think maybe I found one. Barbers like to talk a lot. They're like bartenders. Just cut my hair. Just cut my hair, because I pay attention to what's going on. And the barbershop I'm going to now, I've never done this. I've never been in a situation like this before, where they face you away from the mirror, so you can't see what they're doing. Is that normal? I said, why are all the chairs with the back to the mirror? Well, that's the way barbers do it. Really? I guess I've been going to the wrong barbers, or I've been going to hair salons. So please reach out to me if you would. I say right now, Donald Trump needs to tell Speaker Johnson and the rest of the Republican conference, Mr. Speaker, grow a spine. It's time for Congress to wake up and not just sit there like a bunch of seals and clap, okay? You need to follow Donald Trump's lead. Do you understand? This is a moment in time that we will not have ever again. We will never have another Donald Trump in the White House. I'm sorry, you people like J.D. Vance, great, wonderful, he's not Donald Trump. Okay? Donald Trump is a phenomenon in this country just like George Washington was a phenomenon. We'll never have another George Washington, and we'll never have another Donald Trump. They're unique in their own ways. I'm not comparing the two. And I want to preface everything I'm going to say here with I love and I support Donald Trump 100%. But there are things that need to be done right now with his bully pulpit. It is not business as usual in Washington, D.C. with Donald Trump in the White House. But what I saw last night during the joint session of Congress, looked like a State of the Union, but it was a joint session of Congress. It was business as usual. The Democrats sitting on their hands because there's a Republican president, and the Republicans cheering like crazy because there's a Republican president. We saw the same thing in reverse a year ago, 2 years ago, with Biden. Think about it. Think about it. The same thing was in reverse. The Democrats clapping like trained seals because it's Joe Biden, as mentally deficit as he is, and the Republicans not clapping at all. Business as usual. Donald Trump has got to instill somehow in Speaker Johnson, hey, Mr. Speaker, grow a spine. You need to, he turned a couple of times to Johnson and said, hey, can you do that for me, please? I can't remember what it was, but it's not enough. Donald Trump saved Speaker Johnson's job. And in politics and in Washington, D.C., if you owe somebody, it's time to cash in. And I would go pedal to the metal, the short hairs of Speaker Johnson, now for the next 18 months. I would have Speaker Johnson in the Oval Office, if I were Donald Trump, every day, and say, this is what you're going to do now, okay? And I'm going to lay out exactly what I mean in just a couple minutes. But the two themes from the speech to the joint session of Congress that I took away, number one, we've never been more divided, and it's disgusting to me. And by the way, I see what you saw among the Democrats on social media all the time. Unlike most people, I do keep relations and keep tabs of people who I disagree with 100%. And the reason I do this is because I want to know what they're saying and doing. And I just ran across a post this morning that said something to the effect of, well, let me read it to you. I might as well quote it. I'm not going to say who posted it. In fact, the names were blocked out, so people can't look up and harass these people, because that's not my intention. But the post said, Trump will have his day of reckoning. I hope it hurts like hell. And then there's a couple people who agree with this person. Trump will have his day of reckoning, and I hope it hurts like hell. Now, context, ladies and gentlemen. The 47th President of the United States suffered through, at least that we know of, 2 assassination attempts. One should have killed him. But for the grace of God and God's hand coming down and turning his head severely in one direction, Donald Trump should have been killed that day in Pennsylvania, Butler, Pennsylvania. But God saved him. And I will go to the grave believing that that was a miracle. And you want to prove me wrong? Go ahead. Knock yourself out. Because there's no way you can prove that I'm wrong. Then there's no way I can prove I'm right. But this, in my belief system, this was the hand of God moving Donald Trump. You know, he usually moved left, right, and then he moved severely, and boom, boom, the slugs went by. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that took place. So here's a president of the United States with an assassination attempt there in Pennsylvania that should have killed him, and then you have people posting stuff like that on social media. This is unbelievable. I mean, the Secret Service needs to pay attention to this kind of stuff. And the reason is, it's not hate speech, and frankly, I don't want Facebook to remove it. I don't. I want the world, that's why I look at these people. That's why I stay in touch, if you will, on social media with these people. I want to know what they're doing. I know most of you don't do that. Most of you ask me why I watch CNN once in a while. Same thing. I want to know what they're doing. This is what Patton would do, right, with an enemy. You can't bury your head in the sand and just guess what your enemy is doing. They telegraph their moves. Obama used to telegraph his moves constantly. Excuse me, and I would pull my hair out, saying to the Republicans, look, he's telegraphing his moves. On Obamacare, he telegraphed his moves. We should do something. But here we go with business as usual. Business as usual. Donald Trump has to light a fire under the Speaker of the House and the Republican leadership and all 218 Republicans? 220? I don't remember the number. It must be more than that. In any case, all the members of Congress light a fire under all of them. Hey, suckers, this is a moment in time. I know you care about your rear ends, and that's all you care about in getting reelected. But we're going to pass term limits for Congress. How do you like them apples? And you know what? You're going to do it, or you're going to come under withering attack from Donald Trump. I would love to tell Stephen Miller, here's your list, okay? This is what you're going to go lobby. I mean, he's the perfect people to get in these members of Congress, Republican members of Congress grill, and say, look, here's the list, and this is how you're going to vote. And if you don't, hell has no fury, like a Donald Trump scorn. So how do we do this? How do we make it not business as usual? How do we execute what Donald Trump has laid out, has laid a foundation for? Last night, people asked me, so what did you think of the speech? You know, like I said, our side, great. Their side, they hated it. It's pretty much that. But what I was disappointed about, and again, I'll preface this by saying I love Donald Trump and I support him 100%. But I wanted him to get in the grill of the Republican conference there. Forget about Nancy Pelosi. Forget about Al Green. Forget about these morons on the left. They are hopeless. You're not going to ever get their support. Why try, Pocahontas? Why try? Okay? It's just like you and me. There are some people we know who are hopeless. You can't have a rational conversation with them. Well, you can't have a rational conversation with Ayok or Ilhan Omar. Okay? So, in my opinion, Donald Trump, yeah, you can spike the football like he did. You know, say what's accomplished. I think it was like ad nauseum. Just do a cursory what we accomplished, and this is what we need to do in the future. This is what we need to do to codify, to solidify, to make permanent all of these changes I'm trying to do, like the USAID. Just read another judge, or it was actually the Supreme Court said, nope, Donald Trump, you have to honor these contracts through USAID. Now, I understand why the Supreme Court came down that way, because these were contracts that were agreed to and work done, pay the contract, okay? It's not a huge loss, but it is a huge loss if we don't get Congress to repeal the act, and I think it was the Foreign Affairs Act of 1963. Yes, USAID was formed in part by John F. Kennedy by an order, but the foundation for that was laid by an act that was passed in 1963. Okay? So people who go on social media and they say, it's just an executive order, Donald Trump can repeal it, yes and no. Okay? So yes, Donald Trump can repeal USAID as it is, but he can't repeal the law that was the foundation for it. You understand? So why didn't he turn to Speaker Johnson and say, hey, just repeal this law, okay? Repeal, Speaker Johnson. We don't need more laws. We need fewer laws. God, I wish I had heard that last night. And then turn to Speaker Johnson, repeal, repeal, repeal. I didn't hear it. So yeah, I was a little disappointed. That's my take on the speech. I was praying to God he was going to hold the Republicans' feet to the fire, and it didn't happen. Because that's who he needs to address right now. Not me, not you, not the American people, not Democrat members of Congress. Last night, in my humble opinion, the address should have been aimed at Republican members of Congress and Republican members of Congress only. Why? Because only Congress has the ability to permanently delete, get rid of, sayonara, the Department of Education. Donald Trump can gut it. Donald Trump can reduce it to one employee with a big old budget, but he cannot eliminate it. This is the roadmap for permanent change that we did not hear last night. Is it circulating around the halls of the White House? I hope so. I hope Stephen Miller's all over this. Because it's great, wonderful, ta-da, what Donald Trump is doing, but virtually everything he's doing can be reversed in 3.5 years. Okay? President Newsom comes in there and says, everything Donald Trump has done, we're going to undo it. Boom, poof, done. If President Newsom comes in 2029 and the Department of Education is eliminated, guess what? If he wants to restart the Department of Education, then they've got to go through the process of restarting it. And maybe there's a Republican Congress and they'll say, nope, sorry. If there's a Democrat Congress, well, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Donald Trump is laying a foundation for the elimination of the IRS or changing its charter permanently if Congress pays attention. Again, the IRS is a child of the 16th Amendment, but the 16th Amendment didn't create necessarily the IRS. Congress created this Internal Revenue Service that collects taxes. I would love for the 16th Amendment to be repealed, and I would have loved to have heard that last night. I loved hearing the fact that Donald Trump said we're going to balance the budget. Haven't heard that in quite some time. But at least we heard him say we're going to balance the budget. So repeal the 16th Amendment, I think Graham Ledger is dreaming. Change the mission and reduce the size and scope of the IRS? Yes, completely doable. And I think the Congress would even do that, okay? The Congress can eliminate the IRS if they wanted to. But I believe they'll always leave a mechanism in place to collect taxes. We can eliminate income tax, and Congress has the ability to do that right now. You can eliminate income tax without repealing the 16th Amendment, I believe. Some constitutional scholar can prove me wrong on that. It could be a matter of semantics. Possibly, maybe we have to go down the path of repealing the 16th Amendment. Again, I would be all for it, along with the 17th Amendment. And by the way, that's my Ledger register. It's a very simple question. Does Congress have the political guts to eliminate the IRS? Does Congress have the political guts to eliminate the IRS? I'll answer my own question. I'll say no. And I don't know. Because eliminating the IRS would also bring into play the 16th Amendment. And I don't think this Republican Congress has the guts to even go there. But they can change the mission of the IRS. And Donald Trump is eliminating half the jobs as we speak. I think there's 100,000 employees at the IRS. It may be more than that with all the agents that were sworn in to go after tax-paying Americans for not paying all their taxes. I mean, just disgusting. Armed agents. Disgusting. But if Donald Trump's, like I read, eliminating 45,000 agents, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Your odds of being audited have just plummeted. So, you know, we're happy about that, but it's not enough for me. I want to see a mission change. I want to see the IRS becoming just a clearinghouse for collecting, say, for example, a consumption tax. Or at the very worst, a flat tax where you pay 5% or whatever. And the rest is counted from tariffs, by the way. I think that Donald Trump missed an opportunity last night to kind of explain a bigger picture on tariffs, that he's using them for a negotiation tool. I don't think he made that clear last night. I think that the American people could understand it if they explained it to him. That, hey, you know, sometimes I use tariffs to force other countries to be fair and play by our set of rules. And sometimes I'll use tariffs just to level the playing field. And if South Korea, as he mentioned, you know, gets rid of all the tariffs on our stuff, then we'll get rid of all the tariffs on their stuff. I just wish he had fleshed that out just a little bit more. Okay, we know that, I know that, you know that, and that's what his plan is. When Donald Trump came out and said to Congress, that was a message to Congress, what I'm about to say, by the way, because they're the only ones who can make this happen. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, and applause. Okay, Congress, that's wonderful, all you trained SEALs out there. Now you have to act, okay? Now it's in the budget reconciliation process. Well, act on what the president just said, okay? No tax on tips. Do you know how many hourly wage-earning Americans there are in this country? About 80 million. No tax on Social Security. It's about the same figure. So you're up to 160 million Americans, right? And then overtime, you're probably now at 200 million Americans who need to hear this message, who need this tax relief, by the way. And so Congress, now it's up to you. If I were the Trump administration, I would take that soundbite from last night. It's the only soundbite I would put out there on TikTok. And I would say, just give me this one portion where he says, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. You know what the leftists who are retired now on Social Security say when they hear that? They say, I don't believe it. That's their only recourse. Prove them wrong. Please, Congress. Prove them wrong. Prove the waitresses and waiters out there and barbers who hate Donald Trump, prove them wrong. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime. That's huge. That's huge. It's only a positive, no tax on overtime. There's nobody hurt in any of that. And no tax on Social Security. I don't know how in the wide world of sports that got passed in the first place. Because you've already paid taxes into that Social Security that you're now receiving. It's immoral. And you people who pay taxes on Social Security, maybe we should just stop paying it right now. We don't need new laws, okay? When Donald Trump said, for every new regulation created under his administration, 10 need to be eliminated, same thing with Congress. Same thing with laws. Think about all these laws that are on the book. I'll give you an example. The 1993 Voters' Rights Act, which opened the door for many nefarious things, including motor voter. Okay? And also this 90-day moratorium that handcuffs registrar of voters and secretary of elections in various states, in all states, 50 states, saying they can't touch the new registration voters at 90 days before, anytime in this window, 90 days before an election. So in other words, the Democrats know this, and what do? They flood these registrar of voters, supervisors of elections with new voter registrations within 90 days of an election. And guess what? Those people don't exist. And guess what? They cheat. That's the Voters' Rights Act of 1993. Repeal it. Repeal it, Congress. Do what the president is doing. He's leading by example. You need to follow because you people don't have spines. Donald Trump has a spine. People say he's acting like a guy who's been indicted and shot. Yeah, he is. He's acting like a guy who beat all odds to be reelected a second time with a term in between from a guy who stole his actual reelection. That's what he's acting like. He's acting like a guy who has achieved great things in the private sector, learned from his first experience in Washington, D.C., where he was screwed over multiple times, and now, yes, doesn't give a blank. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing, and I think you're seeing it too. Thank you for my comment on my hair. It looks good. So for every one new law passed, you have to eliminate 10, Congress. Go for it. Just do it. And let the chips fall where they may. Oh, but Graham, you can't just eliminate laws. Oh, yes, you can. We have too many laws on the books. Do you know how many laws we have on the books? I don't. I have no clue. But I know we have activist judges, and I'll get to that in just a second. The border. Okay. I have thought about this a lot, and it's on my website on the permanent changes that I would make under new amendments to the Constitution. What do we do about the border? Again, Donald Trump's doing great things, building the wall and holding military exercises down there at the border. Great, wonderful, fantastic. But the problem is President Newsom can come in here and undo it like that, right? Okay. So what do we do to permanently keep the border secure? I think there's only one way I can think of. If somebody smarter than me, go ahead, suggest it. But I think we form a tribunal, and this is on my website. It's item number 8, border security. Militarize the border, yeah. Place under joint jurisdiction of state border governors, U.S. Senate, and U.S. Army. Okay. If the U.S. Army has jurisdiction along the border, then of course that's the President of the United States because he's the Commander-in-Chief. So actually, this tribunal would be the President, would be border governors, and right now, most of them are Democrats, unfortunately. But there's a really good one in Texas, and there's a lot of Texas border. So the border governors have a say, and they should, right? And the United States Senate. This way, we set up checks and balances. That a president can't just do what Joe Biden did. No, the mandate and the law is you do this, okay? And the border governors have a say. Okay, you get some radical border governors. Well, at least you have maybe a stopper in the United States Senate. No, radical border governors. This is the law, and this is what needs to be done. I don't know what else to do. I just think putting it in the hands of a single person is a mistake because we've seen it now over and over and over again. And by the way, I would move military bases down at the border. In San Diego, for example, there's an airstrip down right at the border called Brown Field. You could annex that. I'm sorry, you people who fly in and out of Brown Field. But it's a terrible airport because there's mountains there. And don't give me nasty grams and tell me it's not terrible. It's a small regional airport, okay? But there are these things called the mountains, and I think they're the Chocolate Mountains, that Reba McEntire's crew plane flew right into one time in the late 90s, I believe it was, if my memory serves. And they were all killed. They flew into the mountains. It's not a great place. It's why San Diego International Airport was never relocated there. That was one of the ideas, to relocate it there, and then, oops, we have mountains in the way. So not a great idea. So my point is annex it or lease it or share it and have military bases, build them down there. Build bases along the border. In El Centro, California, USA. There is the Naval Air Station out there, just west of El Centro. And that's right along the border. Well, okay, you can expand a little bit south, a little bit further, closer to the border. You know, there's nothing more intense and scary to coyotes, to illegals, and to the drug cartels than an osprey flying along the border, right along the fence, and churning up all the dust, basically smoking them out. I loved it. I'm describing a video that I actually posted on social media. It's an osprey flying parallel to the border about, I'd say maybe, if it's 100 feet, I'd be surprised. And of course, the downdraft from the osprey, because the osprey's configuration is for helicopter, not for plane. It's for helicopter on this mission. It's just, it's kicking up all this dust. I mean, there's not a single drug pusher or illegal alien that can survive that. I mean, there's dirt up their nose. It's not going to kill them, but it's going to stop them. And it also sends a message, hey, we're here, and you're not allowed to violate our sovereignty, and you're not allowed to violate our country, and not allowed to violate our laws. The judges. This is, I'm going to harangue this until it happens, or until 4 years from now, I'll say I told you so. We have these radical activist judges. Excuse me, I'm going to have some pink water. Costco water. It's just carbonation and water, I believe. Yeah, carbonation and water. Ingredients: carbonated water and natural flavors. No caffeine. I have enough caffeine in the morning. Yes, Congress, you can impeach a judge. Go ahead, knock yourself out. But the process is long and laborious, and it's a long shot. But what you could do, as I have mentioned before, is you can create a magistrate. Yes, this is the law that you would pass, and then repeal 10 others. You create a temporary magistrate, and I mean temporary, with an expiration date of 3 years, because we don't want this to fall in the hands of the enemy, okay? So you have a 3-year window here, and you set up expedited courts regionally in this country. And so you take a case like the guy, the special prosecutor that Donald Trump is trying to fire, and legally, lawfully, Donald Trump can fire him. We have this thing called separation of powers. And the judicial branch cannot tell the executive branch what to do, but that's what's going on. And I would love the Supreme Court to slap that one down and say, hey, you are out of line, okay? The United States Constitution gives the executive branch wide authority here. So get out of here. But waiting to appeal every one of these cases, I think there's more than 20 now, that they're holding up what Donald Trump is trying to do. Give it to an expedited judge, as I said before, a Judge Judy judge that says, okay, what's your case? You got 5 minutes, file paperwork, whatever. Keep it brief. That's why we call them briefs. And then what's the government side? Okay, give me your briefs. I'm going to go back, retire, and I'm going to render a decision that day. And there's only one place you can appeal it, and that's the Supreme Court. These are federal courts. The Congress has the power. The Article 1 branch has the power to create inferior courts as it seems and deems necessary. Okay? Article 1 power. There's only one Article 3 branch of the courts that was established, and that's the Supreme Court. All inferior courts are the Congress. So create a temporary, expedited series of courts regionally throughout the country that this magistrate can pick the case and say, yep, this one needs to be expedited, go for it. And I mean expedited. We're not measuring it in weeks or months. We're measuring it in days and hours. Why not? Why not have a bunch of Judge Judys all over the country saying, give me your case, let's hear it. Give me the government side, let's hear it. Okay, I got a couple questions. Handle it free form. You know, why can't the president fire somebody who's under him as the chief executive of the country? Tell me, explain to me why. I see Donald Trump doing great things, and it makes me happy. But it's kind of like a sugar high, and the sugar high is going to go away when he goes away, unless Congress gets its act together and makes what Donald Trump is doing permanent. Because otherwise, all of this is for naught. And it's going to be like a Super Bowl victory. You win, we're going to win Super Bowls for the next 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden, bam, that trophy is gone. And all this is taken away. It's not permanent. We've got to make what Donald Trump is doing permanent. All those malfeasance, overspending, waste, fraud, and abuse being discovered by this administration and DOGE, how did all those people get hired? How did all of those agencies and those programs get funded? Have you ever asked yourself that? That's why I say what I saw last night was business as usual in Congress. It's Congress that funded all of those programs. It's Congress that funded all of those agencies. It's Congress that allowed the waste, fraud, and abuse to take place. They created the waste, fraud, and abuse in various ways, in various manners, over the years, over the decades. Now is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to undo permanently the waste, fraud, and abuse by downsizing permanently the United States federal government, by eliminating, wholesale elimination of departments that are completely unnecessary, like Department of Energy and Department of Education. Now is the time, but it cannot happen unless Congress grows a spine. And there's only one person on the planet who can help Congress grow a spine, and it's Donald J. Trump, the man in the White House right now. We have a window. We have a window of opportunity. And God, I hope that we squeeze our way through that window and make this country constitutional again. I'm Graham Ledger. Thanks for watching. And remember, even when I'm wrong, I'm right. And evil can only prevail when good is silent.